G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of Tuesday Night Live, brought to you by Crowcast, of course. Apologies for the late start, just got home from work. As you can see, I'm still dressed in my work clothes, but what better way to finish a long day at the office with some footy talk. So without any further ado, let's crack straight in. Oh, Peter, we're going to have to introduce Riley Tilthorpe's left foot over the shoulder freak goal into that intro now, along with Joe Petrenko. How are you going, mate?
Really well, Fane, really well, and what a great night it was Saturday night. Could you have been any more excited? It was just fantastic. All I could think to myself, could you imagine if that game was played at Adelaide Oval? It would have lifted the roof off.
Would have gone off. I reckon it would have been louder than that Collingwood game that Josh Jenkins couldn't hear the siren because everyone was going crazy.
It wasn't great. It was enjoyable, and you know, it's not all bad rebuilding, is it? It's not all bad. There's some if you look at it from the right perspective, you can get some real enjoyment and real engagement.
Absolutely,
with the club out of the season.
Absolutely.
Why was it? Fane, can you answer me this, just right off the boot? Why was, back in the Trick days, why was the club ever worried about going through a rebuild? Why did they ever think that they would lose fans by re-energising the side?
Look, mate, I'm with you 100%. I don't know why. I reckon it would have been an edict from the SANFL days that in order to be profitable, we had to maintain and. You know, that probably might have been true for the first half a dozen years or so, but I think once you got an entrenched supporter base like we got very quickly, I think they could have thrown it out the window. And I agree with you, there's a lot of wasted years, I think, as a result.
Well, I can't remember a year where everyone was so up and about and engaged with the side, and we all know we can't make finals.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yet we're all just absolutely engaged, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly right. I don't know. Anyway, we can't dwell on the past. Look, g'day to everyone who's joined us on Discord tonight. We've got a full complement in the live studio audience, which is fantastic, and a lot of people engaging on chat, both on YouTube and on Discord as well. Don't forget, if you want to get around us on Discord, there's plenty of instructions on our YouTube channel. Just search Crowcast on YouTube, and there will be a Discord instruction video there that you can get around us. Nearly up to 200 in our Discord community now, Pete. It's fantastic. It's 185. I reckon we'll get to 200 by end of July, I reckon, which is pretty good going.
Exponential growth, mate. Exponential
growth, exactly right. And also exponential growth on YouTube as well. And for those people that listen to our audio feed, a lot of people I know listen to our audio feed rather than watch on YouTube. Don't be afraid to chuck us a review on iTunes and just pump us up a little bit there. Our iTunes rating is actually pretty good at the moment. Our rankings are pretty good, but the more the merrier. Wherever you can, support us on socials because this cast will only get better with more people involved. Now, Peter, it's already 8:46, mate, so the clock's ticking. So,
it's all right, mate. I've got an extension.
Oh, you've got an extension. Fantastic. Well, I haven't had tea yet, so bugger your extension. No, look, it's all good. So, look, just a little bit firstly on the match, just to round that out. We had young Josh Worrell making his long-awaited debut on the weekend, and you know, the lad probably struggled. I felt like he was a bit overwrought and probably lost his feet a few times. He should have stayed upright. Looked a little bit like a clumsy giraffe at times, but great to see him on deck anyway.
Yeah, it was, and just a bit unfortunate. He was matched up in the early moments against Mason Wood, who is the kind of player that at any given time you think can rip a career apart, and then he doesn't. And if you just bump into Mason Wood at the wrong time, he can make you look pretty silly, as is what happened. But, he could play on Mason Wood another 10 times and wouldn't get a kick. So
That's
it's
right.
just, he's just one of those players, Mason Wood, unfortunately. But it was great to see Josh out there. Really interesting, the coach saying, and I'm not sure if you buy into this, but it was really interesting to hear the coach saying that we had, I think, something like 14 players who had never played a game under lights outside of Adelaide Oval.
That's an amazing statistic. It wouldn't have even occurred to me, but and I don't reckon many of them would have played in conditions like got served up at JMac's home deck. Up there in northern Queensland, I don't know what the temperature was, but it would have been mid to high 20s, I would assume, and just dripping wet, even before it rained.
Oh, and that's all part of the learning curve, and that's all the journey that we're on, and but by gee, that the second half, it was just all hands on deck, and it was just it was an ugly but a really, really passionate kind of display by the players, wasn't it? They were just so so team orientated, and they just did everything they could to push the ball forward, and a lot of the time it wasn't pretty, but it was they showed some heart, didn't they?
Well, after about halfway through the second quarter, because that first quarter was ugly as hell. Oh God, I was thinking, this is just going to be a disaster. But they are showing qualities that are unusual for what we've become used to with an Adelaide side, and I think at times we could probably be accused in the past of being front runners and being a little bit flaky. And you and I and Macca and Nicky at various stages over the last few years have lamented blokes going missing or blokes just making bad errors at critical times in big games. You just get a little bit of a different feeling about this list, in my opinion.
Absolutely. We used to talk a lot about some of the really critically important games that they went missing particularly under Don Pike, and I'm the same as you. You just get the feeling that this is a team that has got a bit of a hard edge about it, and they'll do. It doesn't necessarily have to be pretty, but they'll do whatever it takes. And doesn't it help? When we're talking about rebuilding, and we're talking about how that sets us up for drafting, we've not had access to top 1 to 5 talent, probably, in our, I can barely remember.
The only time we did, we gave it away for Wayne Carey.
That's right. But, I know we've probably said it before, but what a difference it makes to have that talent.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute, just unequal talent.
Yeah.
In Riley up there, it just made such a difference. And but look, they all played their part. He did some star things. And let's not forget, when we're 6 goals down, he took that contested mark in the third quarter.
Yes.
It's a strong mark, wasn't he? And he just the way he just shoved the guys out of his way as well.
Yeah.
He's a big angry man.
Yeah.
Riley, for an 18-year-old. He's angry, he's aggressive, and he just gets it done.
Well, I was getting a bit shirty in the first half because I wanted him to take 1 or 2 marks that he'd gone for, and I thought, come on, Riley, you got to start taking those. And granted, the conditions were terrible for contested marking and all the rest of it, but when he took that grab in the third, I thought, yes, that's exactly what we need from you, mate. And I reckon the biggest thing that would have come out of that game, not that Riley lacks any doubts in terms of his own ability, but I reckon being such an integral part of that win just would make the kid feel like he belongs at the level now, and I wouldn't mind betting that we see a couple of standout games from him as the season goes into the second half.
Yeah, that's right. And as he's getting the pace of the game, what we're also seeing is his abilities around the ground, and how he's now starting to get much more involved in the game. And when he goes into ruck, it's really just putting another midfielder in there, isn't it? He's just he gets his hands on the ball, and he's creative, and he just sees. He was always described as a freakish talent, and he does do those sort of freaky things, doesn't he?
Yeah,
just thinks so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rising Star nom for body of work, well deserved too. The thing also, just to round that off, Pete, that I enjoyed is that even though we had big last quarters from Laird and Sloane, there were some noticeable performances by our young lads that were really integral. Harry Schomburg had a huge last quarter, and some of his touch, as Macca and I were talking about on Sunday night, some of his touch just makes me drool. Berry hard at it, clean below his knees. McHenry hard at it. It wasn't just the old stages. In fact, Seadsman, who dominated possession, even though he'd burned it a bit for the first three quarters, wasn't really a factor in the last. It was our young lads on the back of some really gutsy work from Sloan and Laird that got us over the line in the end.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. It's I thought it was the best game that Sam Berry has played for us. I think he got himself, because there's one knock on Sam and this is being pretty harsh given his first year. But he's a little bit down. Yeah. But to see him get up to 16 possessions and give the usual kind of grunt that he's been giving all the way through, it just complemented it a little bit. And as you say, there was some incredibly clean takes where he hit the ball at pace.
Yep.
And just that cleanliness below his knees was really quite phenomenal. And as you say, some of the little knock-ons that Harry got, he won't get stats for, but just little knock-ons and things that he did was, he's going to be a real player for us, obviously. So, those two boys in the midfield, we get a nice top, 5 or 6 midfielder this year, and there's plenty of pick from, as we've talked about. That's going to really set us up nicely.
Yep, absolutely right. Probably the only selection issue, I think, aside from whether they keep Josh in for another couple, is the ongoing mediocre form of Shane McAdam. And I'll segue that into a little bit of SANFL talk, because I thought Lachie Gallant started really well in the SANFL and looked almost a ready-made third tall, Peter.
Yeah, he did. He came on really, really nicely, took a couple of nice marks. And I actually saw Lachie play in the trial match against Norwood very early in the year.
Yeah.
And surprisingly enough, I think you'll find that match on Sunday, I think it was, against it. That was his first game for the Crows,
that's right. It was.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's his first game. But I was really quite impressed with him against Norwood. And sorry, just being interrupted there. I was really impressed. This kids, mate. Was really impressed with his game against Norwood in that trial match. I thought he got on a couple of really, really nice marks. He just looked the part. Just looking at him live, he just really looked the part.
Yeah, nice height. Good attack on the ball.
Really good height. Really jumps and takes the ball at its highest point, and he's got quite sort of telescopic arms as well. So, I think he's a potential. I think that he's maybe a little bit light on for a debut this year, but you never know. I love the fact that they're running through and giving these guys games. So you never know, a little bit of form. But I would think Lachie would be, and the team would be, the club would be pretty happy if he could just put together, 3 or 4 good SANFL games now and get himself some touch.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. He's certainly one to watch.
Yeah, and DMac, yes, we did win the SANFL. It was a good win over Sturt, who have been in decent nick. And Sturt did come back a little bit in the last, but we managed to hold on. I thought Lukey Pedler also took a step, a couple back from injury now, and he just seemed to get involved a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's just fitness, Fane. That's all it is for Pedler. And what you saw was the first half where he was quite damaging. He was able to break away from clearance and from stoppage, I should say, and give effective clearance by putting some metres in before he kicked. And that's what you want to see from a midfielder like that. You just want to see him break away from stoppage and get the ball going our way. And I think that's what he's known for. And we saw a bit of that. We saw, some goal kicking and so all those good things that you wanted to see from Luke. We saw them probably just faded out in the second half, and that's probably just fitness, I'd reckon.
Well, he's been had a long layoff with that grind. So the other one that I thought took a step was Cook. I thought he just looked a little bit more involved and a little bit more, confident, I guess. So he's obviously starting to find his feet too, I think.
Yeah, just upped his production. Another one that just upped his production to 15 disposals and just, just got himself involved in the game a little bit more. And that's what you want to see from him. And he's a really interesting, I think, Cook, in terms of if you look at Gallant, as you're saying, he immediately presents as a sort of a third tall marking forward.
Yeah.
Braden Cook, I'm not sure. He came off the back of some good goal kicking for South Adelaide under 18s. But if you had a look at his footage, he does not play as a leader, or he didn't play as a leader sort of forward for South Adelaide. He was more of a sort of a wing half forward running towards goal rather than running up the field. Does that make sense?
Yep. That's why I pin him as a wingman, I reckon. If he's got the pace.
I think he's a wingman. Yep. I think if they can get the kilometres into him, I think he's a wingman.
Yep.
Which is a position that's coming very much back into vogue in the AFL. Have you noticed that this year, just as a little side issue? Have you noticed that the wing...
Well, Pete just faded out there, mate. But I have noticed that the wings have become a little bit more prominent, and I think it's to do with the way that the ball's being transitioned with multiple possessions. So I don't know whether you're back yet, but your microphone just faded out there, mate. No, you might have to do the old turn it off and turn it back on again sort of thing. There we go. Just while we're waiting for Peter to reorganise himself, a reminder for anyone that's in chat, of course, that if you want to have something to say about the game on the weekend, or about the SANFL, or about match review when we get to that, or selection or anything like that, please, by all means, put your hand up. We'd love to get you involved in the chat as always. And there's Pete again. I might just see if I can get you in, Peter.
Sorry, mate. That's my fault entirely. I'm working with this laptop, and sometimes it just boots me out. So anyway, I do apologise.
It just fades out.
I'd made this great statement about the emergence of true wingmen in the AFL, and then I was met with this absolute silence. I'm thinking, well, Fiend obviously thinks I'm a bit of a dickhead there, but well, because I'd cut out.
Are the two mutually exclusive, Peter? Let's not explore that.
Let's not go there, mate. Let's not go there.
Now,
no, I think Braden Cook presents as a wingman for us. That's what I'm going to say.
Agreed. Now, J&M and I don't know whether J&M are on YouTube tonight, but they just badgered. I think it's Mr. and Mrs. Parnell, actually. That's the J&M account, because they just kept badgering me to talk about young Parnell. What do you think? What do you think?
Oh, look, I thought he was terrific, and there's nothing more enjoyable to seeing a kid that doesn't look like he's able to play AFL football just slot in and play
Just play, yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And it's one of the things I love about the game is the fact that we muse about potential draftees, and we talk about we'd like a tall midfielder, and we need a bit of height here, and we need a bit of this, bit of, and then you just see a kid like that come in who's 177, 176.
Something like that, yeah.
And he's light, but guess what? He can football. And so I think that we just so grossly underestimate how some kids are just really, really good pure footballers, and he is that. I reckon in the second quarter, up to half time, he was close to our best.
Yeah, wouldn't have been far off.
He would have had about 10 or 11 disposals by half time, and he was another one that probably just ran out of a bit of puff, just looking at step up in competition. But once he gets some kilometres in his legs, he's another one that he looks to me like he can just play AFL football.
Agreed.
Agreed. And you look at him, he looks like he's 12 years old. He looks like he looks like he'd break if you touch him, but he has got some serious weapons in terms of his decision making and his disposal. So he's been a really good pickup, I think.
What do you do with a kid like that? I mean, he's obviously a bit light. You're just feeding back through the headphones, just through the microphone, just a little bit, Peter. He's obviously a little bit light, but he's small in stature. And do you just let the kid develop naturally, or do you try and get a few kegs onto him, or get him to build up his upper body? I'm not sure. You don't want to break the kid. He's going all right as it is at the moment.
No, they'll certainly look to put a few kilos on him, but I mean, it'll just be a case of how his natural sort of body shape holds up.
Yeah.
But he's just a kid that you would just, you'd put him in as a small defender, in that kind of that Luke Brown type of role, and you'd work with him on his one-on-one stuff, and then you'd try and free him up and just release him to kick the ball out of defence. I think it sounds simple, I know, but I think that you would have to put a little bit of muscle on him, but Billy Four Eyes makes a really good point. Caleb Daniel, he's put a little bit of muscle on, but not a huge amount.
Upper body really has through the shoulders. He's quite strong now, Caleb Daniel. I guess,
and you just free him up, and
yeah.
Sorry, mate. You just free him up and make sure that they're delivering outside of defence.
Yeah. Does it maybe draw a line through one or two of the lads in this year's draft that are similarly small in stature? Do we have our fill now with Jones and McHenry and now Parnell and a couple of others that are sort of sub 180?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, look, from a South Australian perspective, the one that I know that we had talked about was Lewis Rayson down at the Bay, and just how good he is in that role. And look, he's moving up and playing a bit of midfield now, so he may well be picked up as a midfielder, but most of his football at the junior level, and it'll be interesting to see how they use him in the champs. I'd suggest that they'll keep him in his running halfback role. But you're right, it could very well rule out a player like that, because if you think, we do have a lot of small to medium defenders there, and that's always been Hamish's go for whatever reason. We're certainly flush.
Not a bad performance by the SANFL, and in a little while we'll talk about one of your favourites, Peter, Morgan Ferres, but before we get to that, I'm very keen to hear your thoughts about the upcoming tribunal disaster caused by the enforcer, David, Thunder God McKay, or whatever the hell you want to call him now. I think it's an absolute... it's a pivot point for the AFL, this particular decision.
Yeah, look, I know it's we've talked about it, and I know that you feel pretty strongly about it, and as do I. I think most of the footy community does. If I was to put my sort of objective head around it, I think I put a message on Discord the other day, just saying I think that we are now at the ultimate intersection of concussion risk management and AFL and football as we know it, and it was on, and I wrote that at the time where the AFL hadn't, graded the charge. Yeah, they had now graded it. They've made their decision.
I've missed that. What is the decision?
They've just said they've graded the charge. So you know how it originally went ungraded.
Ungraded. What is the grade?
It's the high, severe. The whole 9 yards.
Did they make it intentional or reckless or negligent?
Negligent, I think it was, and so they're looking for that. They're looking for that 3+ weeks, similar to what. Who's the Port Ruckman? Sorry, that got hold of McHenry.
That guy.
That guy, yeah, that big bloke.
Yeah.
So it's the same grading as what he got, because what happened was that Christian sent it up. He didn't. Yeah, he'd sent it up as ungraded.
Didn't want a bar of it.
They didn't want to. Lysa, thanks, Patrick and VM. But what happened is that Hocking's coming over the top.
Yeah, right.
He's come off the top rope.
Yeah,
and said no, I'm going to grade this, and so he's now graded it. So that's where it sits.
Yeah.
So the AFL they've nailed their colours to the mast. They've said that they want a result out of this. So they've now their decision. And I think there could be a bit of risk management associated with that, Fiend. It could be a case of saying, well, we have to put our position there, and if the tribunal knock us back, well, then it's not our fault.
The tribunal is not independent. Doesn't matter what you say, it's not independent.
That's true as well. Yep.
I guess the way, there's there's a lot of factors in this. Obviously, O'Meara got let off, no case to answer for a similar incident the previous evening. To me, there's not a lot of difference. Watching it in real time at the time, it looked like two blokes going extremely hard at the ball, which is exactly why the majority of us watched this great sport. David McKay, he's not I hope that Adelaide mount a defence around the fact that David McKay at no stage made a decision to bump, because David Mackay at no stage made a decision to bump. His hands are out for the ball. He turns his body, as you're taught to do in juniors, to accept contact if it's coming. But at no stage did he tuck up and go for a bump. So if the AFL are going to argue that he shouldn't have chosen to bump, well, the counter argument in my view is that he didn't. It was a collision. No.
And his foot, the pictures, the stills show clearly his foot was on the ground.
He was running. He was running.
There's no propelling, so he stopped himself.
That's right. And the only reason he went over the top is because Hunter Clark got a little bit lower, and the momentum of DMac coming into the contest just flipped him over. But the problem with them sanctioning Mackay, in my opinion, is that it throws a hell of a lot of doubt into players' minds about when they should and shouldn't go. And I'm all about duty of care to a degree. I don't think players should be able to just, go off willy-nilly and belt blokes and bash blokes and dish out concussion and all the rest of it. But I think there's a level of danger in terms of putting doubt into players' minds about when they should and shouldn't go in, because you know as well as I do that when you go into like anyone that's played football knows that if you go into a contest, you have to, if you hesitate or if you're not braced appropriately, you're going to get hurt. And so the best way when you're in a contested situation is to commit and brace and go as hard as you can to protect yourself more than anything else. Now, if they start throwing doubt into players' minds and players get halfway through a motion and all of a sudden stop, you're going to see, you're still going to see impact injuries, but I think you're also going to see joint injuries. You're going to see dislocations, you're going to see knees, all sorts of stuff, because players are not going to know what the hell they're supposed to be doing, and they're being asked to make a decision in a split second.
Yeah. It's almost like the netball injury situation where, you got people just stopping on a 5-cent piece and it just wrecks the joints. But, it's absolutely true. And, I think I'm the same as everybody in this. You feel for the game itself. It just seems unbelievable that it could get to this point. I mean, where do we go with things like, guys going for a high mark and a specky? What if their knee collects the head of the defender?
Well, and that's far more dangerous in my opinion.
Yeah. Knee in the back of the head is.
Yeah. I mean, let's look historically. It was not that long ago that young Finey got let off at the Tribunal after being done by the MRP for breaking Tom Lynch's jaw. And to me that was more a case of running past the ball and hitting the player. DMac at no stage ran past the ball to hit the player. So
he had the good bloke defence there.
Yeah, that's right. He had the Melbourne, please don't weaken us any further defence. And I guess the other question in my mind is, had Hunter Clark not broken his jaw, and this comes back down to the old argument of punish the result, not the action, but what would have happened if Hunter Clark had dislocated his shoulder rather than broken his jaw?
Exactly.
Would it have been still an injury that would keep him out for 6 weeks or whatever? But it's not a head injury. Same action, different consequence, different injury, but same outcome. Would we still be talking about this now?
Well, we wouldn't be. And what you've hit upon, Fiend, very accurately, is the cynicism which goes with concussion risk management. That's what it is. It's cynical. And it is nothing more than the AFL risk managing their own potential liabilities for concussion claims in the future. And we talked about this a couple of years ago, that we were worried a couple of years ago on this podcast about where the game was going to end up because of this. Now here we are at the intersection, as I said.
Yeah, right
this
now.
Is this is it. This is the one.
Yeah. And Andaluz on the chat, makes a very pertinent point. You have to protect the head. And I don't think anyone disputes that you have to protect the head. But as I think I mentioned in chat the other day, if you're going to play a game of AFL football, you have to accept some level of risk associated with that workplace. Just the same as if I work in a mine, there's a certain amount of risk associated with mining. There's a certain amount of risk involved in motorsport. There's a certain amount of risk in 99% of sports. And I don't think... I think, I get the AFL's need to mitigate risk, etc. But protecting the head is one thing, but I think you cannot legislate out accidental collisions unless you turn it into touch football, basically.
Yeah.
So
No.
will the AFL make that decision? And I'm almost fascinated to see what will happen if they do. Because it won't just stop there, in my opinion, because this is really divided. Even partisan Victorian media commentators, it's been quite divisive, and so I think the discussion will rage on and on and on.
Yep, we're at the edge of the cliff now. We really are.
I agree. So that's Thursday night, I believe.
Yes, Thursday it is.
I do also hope that if DMac does get weeks, I do hope that the Adelaide Football Club get behind him and appeal, because without being a lawyer, you know better than me, Pete, but without being a lawyer, I would say that there'd be avenues for appeal that might be fruitful. I don't know, but just out of principle, I hope they do.
Absolutely.
All right. The other thing, just quickly before Morgan, did you get around Caroline Wilson's comments about Seb Ross and the other lad that I've forgotten?
Yeah, I didn't like it, and I didn't like the way she doubled down on it today.
Yeah.
That was what surprised me, doubling down on it, basically saying that I'm just saying what everybody else is thinking.
Which actually isn't true. I don't think that's a fair reflection of what everyone's thinking.
Just not true at all.
No. Seb Ross has just had twins, 5 weeks old, and Caro's saying, well, there's no medical emergency. Well, you don't know. Is the young lass struggling with the twins? Is there some postpartum depression? Is it just the fact that he wants to be around his kids? Because having twins is... I know a mate of mine had twins. You know him as well, Brownie. Pete had twins, and that's fucking hard work. Hard work.
I just thought it was pretty ironic from somebody who's had a fair bit to say over the years about some of the poor behaviour and blokey culture, and then comes up with that one. I thought that was a bit ironic.
Well, the irony was, and the hypocrisy was, that she was saying, Seb Ross is part of the leadership group. Who was the other one? What's his name? I've forgotten. Gresham, that's right. They're part of the leadership group and all the rest of it, and had they been on the field, St Kilda wouldn't have lost that game. And then she makes a statement, Seb Ross, I don't know what he's thinking. He might not even be playing for Saints next year. And I'm thinking, well, on the one hand, you're thinking that he's going to be delisted because he's not good enough. And on the other hand, you're saying that he was integral to a win. She's just talking out of her ass. And, maybe going down the Sam Newman path. Wouldn't it be ironic if she ended up being viewed in the same light as poor old Sam after being adversaries all these years?
She's gone down a very silly pathway there.
She has, and we'll see how that pans out as well. Anyway, moving right along, we're at 9:15, Peter. We've got a few minutes, and you're a big G. You're a big G for a young lad that plays out at Sturt. Young Morgan Ferres. Tell us about him, mate.
Thanks, mate. Yes, I am a big G, and how fortunate that, as it turned out, that we had some tech problems last week, so we didn't get to talk about Morgs last week, and we're able to talk to him about him tonight on the back of a really, really dominant performance for Sturt under 18s. Of course, it was the bye in school football last weekend, and so Morgs fronted up for Sturt and the under 18s and helped himself to 7 goals 4 on the back of 9 marks with to go with 18 possessions, and so he just made it look pretty easy out there. And so he's played 2 under 18 games now for a total of 13 goals in 2 under 18 games. He's way too good for the level, and he was promoted for 2 reserves game, and he kicked a goal each in each of those 2 games. So he's got nothing to prove. But Morgs, look, what I really like about Morgs is that he's extremely athletic. and he sits at about 190, 191.
Yeah.
I think they thought that he was probably going to grow a bit more, but he might have topped out.
Right.
And so he presents as the third tall. I don't think he's going to reach that key forward player, but he does play pretty tall. So he's so athletic, and he's got a great leap. And I think probably Georgiades from Port is probably a fairly good comparison. They're the same height, and he plays pretty tall as well.
Yeah.
But the thing about Morgs is that I wasn't able to catch up with the recent testing, but he did some testing last year, and he tested 2.95 on the 20-metre sprint, and he also tested 21.2 on the yo-yo. So he has got a really, really big engine, and he's very, very quick off the mark, which obviously for his leading. So Morgs himself says he likes to model his game on Tom Lynch, and so when I was talking about Braden Cook before, we were just I guess standing those two kids apart as one kid who sort of plays probably running towards goal, but one Morgs plays running away from goal. He's very much that lead up player.
Yeah,
and he can take a really, really strong contested mark. I've seen him in the flesh 2 or 3 times now, and he can hit a pack really, really hard, and they just clunk. And he's a real clunker of the ball. And I think that, if you're looking at that, I guess, as I said, that Georgiades or even that Jack Gunston type, he is that player, and he's got a as I said, a wonderful engine. So he'll get up and down the ground, and he'll mark the football, and he'll kick some goals. And so I just think we did have a bit of a chat about that position with the Crows and how we're set up for that third tall. So you were quite right tonight. Lockie Gallant is a player that presents as potentially that kind of player. But I wonder whether there is, and I'm interested in your thoughts, whether you think that there might be room for a Morgs on our list.
I don't think there's actually just room. I think there's actually a necessity. I personally am not... I love Shane McAdams' X Factor, but I don't think I think he's a one-trick pony, and I don't think he's reliable. I'm really liking how Darcy is starting to cement himself in that forward line, and obviously once Tex drops off, we'll have a room for another tall player, and I think a bloke like Gallant or a bloke like Morgan is the prototype third tall that can get up the ground a bit, can run his play around, can spread the defence a little bit. And when you think about 3 completely different targets up forward in Thilthorpe, Darcy, and someone like Morgan Ferres, that's a hard matchup in my books.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that Morgs is the kind of player that'll spread the defence really well because he's got that, because he's quick off the mark, and also because he's got that engine. And I'm not saying that he's a clone of Tom Lynch or anything like that, but in the same way that Tom got up and down for us, I think that Morgs would be that same type of player. And interesting, I think I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago that I was fortunate enough to have a conversation with one of the recruiters at one of the college games. And I'm watching Morgs really closely, and they were a really big G for Morgs for 2 reasons. One, because of his engine. They'd really identified the engine, saying that, that he had an engine built for AFL.
Yeah.
And I think I might have made this comment previously, but I'll say it again, that he mentioned that he thought that Morgs, when the ball hits his hands, he said it's a sound like no other.
Yeah.
He said it's a different sound. He said it is a real clunking grip of a sound that hits his hands, and you just know that it's not going anywhere else. So there's no doubt that he'll go somewhere, and I'd say that the range just yippee whippy. Saying about the draft range estimate. Look, I've seen a couple of mocks that have got him sort of around about that 15 to 20. I don't think he'll go that early for a third tall. I think.
I'm thinking.
Although, what did Georgiades go? Georgiades went top 20, didn't he?
Did he? I thought he went. I thought he went lower than that. Oh, he might have been 19. I can't remember now. Anyway,
but I think Morgs will probably last. I mean, if you're talking about us, I think he'll probably last to our Melbourne second round pick. I think I think Morgs is a.
We're starting to line a few up at that pick, though, aren't we, Pete?
The 25 to 35, maybe I reckon is about Morgs' range. I think that's where he goes, and of course. Look, everything will revolve around the champs, but you and I both know that midfield of South Australia is looking like it's an absolute peach, and I wouldn't mind being Morgs playing ahead of that midfield in the state champs. I reckon.
Even without Matty Robertson, it's still going to be pretty solid.
Unfortunately, without Matty Robertson, and I doubt that he will be available now for the champs. But still, there'll be plenty of room, and there's a lot of midfielders running through there, and I think that Morgs will have a field day, and I think that will only, that'll probably only increase his stocks.
Yeah. Now, Vardy, I'm sorry, but I got home literally about a minute before I fired up the podcast, so I don't have any Morgan Ferres footage, unfortunately, to play on the screen tonight. There's a bit around on YouTube, though, which is where I would have got it from. So it's a bit of a slapdash Tuesday Night Live tonight. My apologies, but... everything that I've
footage there, Fiend, and as you say, he's definitely got it up there because I think he was the round 1 or round 2 player of the week, and when he kicked his 6. He's 13 from 218 games. That's not bad going.
That's not bad, and when you consider 2 blokes with big engines that are also plus 190, one in Thilthorpe and one in someone like a Ferris. You talk about separation. 2 of those blokes running up and down the ground, and then Darcy just splitting packs through the middle lane. I like the sound of that. I really do.
I do as well, and I honestly think that as you say, I absolutely agree. I think there's a need for a Morgs, and there's not many in the draft, I don't think, like him. I think he's very much, if you've got a club that's looking for that third tall, then I think that Morgs is pretty much out there on his own. Certainly at the higher end of the draft. I'm not sure there's anyone that sort of has a similar kind of profile as what Morgs does. So, but we'll see. We'll see how he goes. I'll keep tracking him through his the rest of his college year. He'll suffer a little bit, no doubt, from not having Matty Roberts putting the ball down his throat. But that's up to Morgs to deal with. But he's he's a good enough contestant. I think out of his 9 marks on Saturday, 4 were contested. So. He's a good enough player to win the ball in the air by himself. Yeah.
Jack Gunston, you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon. I'll tell you what I loved about, just a little anecdote, but I saw Morgs play against Ross Trevor a few weeks ago now, and it was absolute ball terror of a game. There was half a goal in it, and there was about 30 seconds to go, and St. Peter's had a kick out from a behind. It was the play of the game, know.
Yeah.
And Morgs he's got on his bike and he is just steamed from the forward line. He's steamed and he's made sure that he hit that pack from the kick out, and he's come 3 deep and taken this massive contested mark. and let me tell you, Ross Trevor, no easy beats. Let me tell you, they'll be one of the best school teams going around. This was a high standard game.
Yeah,
very high standard game. But that closed the game out. That won the game, and it wasn't him kicking goals, mate. It was that engine.
Yeah,
got himself down the ground and taking a big contested mark.
It's also the initiative It's also the initiative to take charge of that situation. You can't buy that.
No, that's right. That's right. And with the clock running down, he takes a big mark like that. By the time he actually gets himself up and dusts himself off, the game's gone. Yeah. So no. I don't mind a Jack Gunston comparison. He's that Gunston, that Lynch, but probably in today's game, probably Georgiadis.
Yeah.
Gunston, who I think is a fine player.
Oh, I love him, Georgiadis. I think he's going to be a star. I would say Gunston, but a little bit more dynamic and a little bit stronger overhead overall. That would be my sort of feel.
Yep.
Peter, thank you very much.
Don't have a side foot analogy. Sorry for that one, Labs. Sorry, mate. I haven't thought about a side foot analogy for that one.
Look, thanks, mate. Thanks to everyone who's joined us on Discord tonight. No one's been game enough to come on, but that's okay. It's been a little bit rushed tonight, but hopefully the content has still been enjoyable. Don't forget, if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/AFL Crowcast and join up there on one of the tiers, or you can just click the donate button on our website and flick us some coin on PayPal, yeah. But we don't limit it to offers of money. If you have any skills or anything like that you want to chip in, or you just want to get involved in any way, There's support Crowcast channel in Discord. Just chuck your name in there, and of course, if you've got any suggestions for anything to do with the Crowcast, go to the suggestion box channel and chuck your suggestion in there. Peter, we're thinking about having a pub night the next time we have a Saturday night game away. It's a bit hard to plan at the moment because the fixture hasn't been set past round 15, but hopefully we'll be able to get a few lads down to the pub on a Saturday night, watch a Crows game, and just get to know each other a little bit better in the Crowcast community. Thanks, mate. Much appreciated.
Good.
Thanks to everyone
pleasure
who's
as always,
joined us. And we will be here on Sunday night for the wrap. It'll be a sort of a mid-season thing, and I hope to see everyone along with us. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.